Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Logos Project. In this episode, Sam and I talk about the Eucharist and metaphysical questions about the human person. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Logos Project. This is your host, Dom, and I'm joined by my co-host, Sam. How you doing, Sam?
I'm great. Everybody, welcome to the Logos Project, where it's midnight, and I'll be driving to Pennsylvania tomorrow in 8 hours or so.
Nice. The audience might notice that there's a trend where we make episodes right before we have a big thing going on, and so they're always rushed and kind of messy.
Ooh.
Actually, they're not. They're pretty good.
Yeah, honestly, we're killing it.
Yeah.
I don't want to brag. I don't want to boast, but I like toast, which brings us to the Eucharist.
Nice.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
I'll let you do the bragging.
All right, yeah. You go first since you are the French toast.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, Sam. Well, so, I think what's really cool about what we've been doing recently is we're hitting some of these, main topics. So we talked about justification for, 4 or 5-ish episodes, and then I had Dr. Thomas on to kind of cap it off,
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the saints, intercession, veneration, and then relics, veneration of relics.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we do next? We talked about confession, right? And so I think this is a great thing that we're doing is we're kind of going through all these main aspects of Catholicism and addressing objections, but also the kind of inner logic of our faith. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so a big one really is the Eucharist, and we're not going to cover everything in one episode, which is why I'm excited, because we can do several on this topic. So
then we could cap it off by having Jesus on the
we'll just we'll bring the mics to Mass. There you go.
Ah, that's a good idea. That'll work.
Yeah, so this one I feel like wasn't really a thing for you. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct.
Yeah, so your issues were more like authority, the papacy, Mary, and saints, and veneration, and stuff like that. But the Eucharist, you're like, yeah, if it's Jesus, it's Jesus. It's like...
Yeah, as an American, it's my responsibility to reject authority, I think. So.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're laughing.
No, I get it. I get it. But the Eucharist, it didn't really seem to be a problem for you. So that being said, it's, although we have a good dynamic and good episodes, it's not just me and you here. We have a third person present, which is the audience.
Wow.
It's a holy trinity of the Logos Project. That being said, I'm going to try my best to present the Protestant position. And I'm going to do so, and then I'm going to expect you to just tell me why you think the Catholic position is better. And I don't expect any, grand theological thesis. I'm not saying, Sam, if you get it wrong.
You're going to get it anyway. You know how I would open here is that
yeah, go ahead.
Protestants don't have the Eucharist, so they are crack-a-lackin'. So it is currently 11:07. I'm sorry, 12:07.
12:07.
I imagine 10 minutes ago before midnight that wouldn't have been funny. So
yeah. Okay, so Sam, in John chapter 6, Jesus speaks about being the bread come down from heaven, and that if we eat his flesh and drink his blood, we have life, right? Now, somewhere in Deuteronomy, I should know better. Somewhere in Deuteronomy, there's a prohibition against eating flesh and blood. Also, Jesus is not speaking about the Eucharist, it seems. He's merely giving an example. He often does this. I am the door. I am the way. I am the shepherd. I am, he speaks in metaphors, right? And in this metaphor, he's saying that he is really the life for the world. And that unless we partake of that life and are in union with him through faith, we have no life in us. And so by faith, we're grafted upon, right, the mystical body, which is Christ. But it's not necessarily, it's John 6, there's no reference to the Last Supper, right, where Jesus basically brings out the bread and wine as a memorial, right? And we do this to remember what Christ did. And so thereby representing our faith in Christ. Does that make sense? And so, in other words, the Eucharist is a beautiful symbol to remind us of our faith commitment to Christ, and that faith is that which united us to Christ. And John 6 is basically that symbol, that analogy played out in a beautiful way. But it's not literally his body, because Christians are not called to be cannibals. Does that make sense? So the Catholic position that says that the Eucharist is literally the flesh of Jesus Christ and that we should eat his toe, right, isn't correct. Rome is wrong. The papacy is wrong. The Protestant position is much more beautiful because it's an analogy of a real encounter that happens through faith by grace alone, right? Through faith alone, by grace alone, for our salvation. There you go.
So that was a lot. What could you boil down basically your thesis into?
Yes. Sorry.
A sentence maybe. So like, well, let's take it just a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
So you said like it's a symbol. Is that basically your?
The Eucharist is a symbol, right? It's a symbol that reminds us of what Jesus did, and it reminds us of the initial union that we have through our faith.
So there are a lot of different places we could start here, I think. First, I want to talk a little bit about covenant.
Ooh.
You might have heard about the word covenant.
I might have.
Yeah. It's basically, I was going to make a joke, but I'm honestly pretty low on creative energies right now.
No worries.
Yeah, so ultimately, the way I look at the Eucharist is it's a physical manifestation of the covenant that we are making, I guess, in our baptism. But I'm already punting this into the stands, dude. I'm so sorry.
You're good. We're around a bonfire, and there's a friend. We're laughing because this actually happened. And there's a friend who is like, "Yeah, the Eucharist is a symbol, and you Catholics believe it's actually Jesus' physical toe or finger or nose. Like, what's the deal with that?"
Yeah, no, it's pinky. I think. I think.
Yeah.
Dude, I honestly have no idea where to start.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
It's not good.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It usually what happens is that I'll start going in a direction and be like, "Dang it, why didn't I say that?" You know?
No, it's I know like a lot of things that I want to say, but I'm not really. None of them are really addressing like what you said. It's like a symbol. I'd be like, well, no, it's not.
Okay, so here's the deal. I'll kind of try to push it in a certain direction. Remember, we talked about a proper hermeneutic. A hermeneutic is a way of interpreting, right? It's a method of interpretation. It's a framework. It's the boundaries of my interpretation. Okay, I'm approaching this text with this presupposition, right? This hermeneutic. And so when we want the hermeneutic to be historical, authentic, not anachronistic, applying things that apply today back then, that wouldn't be fair. We want it to be grounded in Scripture, right? Obviously, and the way first century Jews and Christians would have first century Jews would have understood what is going on. So, but this gets into the Christian hermeneutic. My point being is that we've talked several times about there's a hermeneutic that sees the Old Testament, right, as material signs that point towards the fulfillment of spiritual realities, right? And in this hermeneutic, when the new covenant comes, the material signs did their job, and now the new covenant is spiritual and not material. It's about a spiritual relationship between me and God, right? It's not a material one. Therefore, my relationship is through faith and not through anything that is done in matter with the body, right? And so what that means is that the Eucharist is, right, a symbol of that spiritual encounter. But it's not like a law that we have to obey, because that was the Old Testament.
Yeah. So where I'm struggling at like explaining this, I feel like, is I get that, especially when it's covenant, but where do we see like the necessity for it to be physical as well? Like, it makes sense that it's physical.
Yeah.
But like, where do we see the need for that?
So I might surprise you, right? I don't think that the Eucharist is Christ physically present.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I feel like the Eucharist is like the embodiment of the fact that there's an intertwining of the physical and the spiritual, right?
Yeah.
Those things come together as one. And I understand it's not physically Christ. It is a transubstantiated, like it is a form of Christ. There's a better word for it. What's the word that I'm supposed
it's
to
the
use?
substance of
Substance,
Christ,
thanks.
but the accidents of the bread and wine.
Yeah, exactly. So I see the importance of why the spiritual and the physical need to be together.
Yeah.
Like I see the beauty in that. I don't see the importance in
Great.
that.
Okay. So the hermeneutic that we have been presenting from the Protestant perspective, attempting as best we can to steelman their position, is where the Old Testament is this kind of material pointing to the future spiritual fulfillment. And when the fulfillment is here, matter no longer matters.
Ha.
Right? So the reason why that's incorrect is, first of all, let's lay out the Catholic hermeneutic. The Catholic hermeneutic is that you have material signs that point towards a fulfillment. The fulfillment is when the spiritual is made present in the material.
Do the material signs in the Old Testament differ at all from the material signs that the Protestants would see in the Old Testament? Because they're still material signs, right?
Do the material signs of the Old Testament differ from the material signs of the Old Testament? That's what I heard.
Yeah, from the Catholic versus the Protestant perspective.
Oh, I see.
But yes,
That's
what
a
I was
very
asking.
good question.
Yeah.
There are differences of detail, but overall, yeah, we can agree, right? It's not something you need to butt heads with a Protestant, and obviously the Protestant category is very broad. But yeah, I mean, overall, like the Catholic believes that the Old Testament laws, like circumcision and stuff like that, and some of the liturgical practices, they were proto sacraments in a certain sense. They weren't really affecting spiritual change of the heart, right? While the new ones do, and so the Protestant would say, yeah, there's signs, but it's the spirit that matters. So there's an agreement there. Make sense?
So even in the Old Testament, these were signs, but it was still just the spiritual that mattered. So like circumcision didn't really matter. No, it was still kind of
there wasn't really the spiritual. That's the problem. Their hearts were hardened, and there wasn't the life of the spirit in the Jewish people.
Circumcise their hearts.
Yeah. Now that's overly simplified. There was at times the life of the spirit in the Jewish people, but for the sake of simplicity, right? There is an agreement here, which is the laws pointed to the time when the Spirit would change our hearts, right? But they didn't affect that change. The law does not bring about the change of heart. Christ's faithfulness does.
The law does not bring about the change of hearts. Agreed.
Yeah.
Christ's faithfulness does.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And so the law points to Christ's faithfulness. And then when we participate in that faithfulness, the Spirit is in our heart and changing it, right? And that's the new law, is the faithfulness of Christ.
But we all agree on this.
Me and you, the Protestant as well. Now, the thing is that faithfulness is one that is expressed materially. That's where the Protestant would disagree.
Why is that important?
Because two things. The Jewish hermeneutic, and secondly, the Christian one. Because the Word was made flesh, not because the flesh became Word.
So the Word was made flesh, but then he died. He rose 3 days later, and he was assumed in heaven.
Yeah.
But the flesh is gone. It's in heaven.
No. Are you saying that Jesus does not have a physical body?
No, I'm trying to steelman the...
Right. But Jesus is in heaven with his body.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not...
Why is that important?
Because it shows that the church, right, is a redemption of matter, an elevation. That's why Jesus he ascends to heaven and it sits at the right hand of the Father with his human body, right? And that's why matter is transformed. It's not an escape from matter. Does that make sense?
So without that, it wouldn't really be a redemption of creation. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Yeah. So the key Catholic hermeneutic here is that creation isn't totally depraved and thereby left behind, right? And so that we can go to heaven. N.T. Wright, who is not Catholic, speaks about this a lot. Rather, it's heaven that comes to earth to transform it, right? And earth is incorporated and assumed into the Trinitarian life, right? All of the cosmos. It's Christological. Through the incarnation, the Word becoming flesh, redemption, creation, and including all of its material aspects are glorified, redeemed, sanctified, transformed, and incorporated into the divine economy of the Trinity, right? Economy means household management in Greek. And so it's this family management of a people of God who live the Trinitarian life because the Trinity lives in them, right? And so it's a marriage between heaven and earth. It's not an escape from earth to go to heaven. And that's why...
that's good. Because I feel like the word marriage there is like really charged and really important. Because like there's clearly physical implications of marriage.
Yes.
In like the union of the spiritual and the physical.
Yeah, material might be a better word.
Material, what I say, physical.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being technical because I'm thinking
physical.
So, stepping back, right? My Protestant argument at the beginning of this episode was that faith is what unites us in the new spiritual covenant to Christ. But in the Old Testament, right, It was all of these material laws and signs that pointed to that spiritual relationship. And so in the new covenant, all that matters is faith alone. Not all that matters, to be fair. But faith alone is the characteristic of the new covenant. And so the Eucharist and baptism, and for not for all Protestants, right? But there's signs of that spiritual reality. There is a kind of a divorce. They only remind us of. They don't partake and participate in any way in that spiritual reality. But the Catholic is like, no, the Word was indeed made flesh. And so the flesh is graced. And so we receive Jesus through his incarnation. And therefore we go back to God through the incarnation of Jesus as well, which is material and spiritual, right? And so that's why the sacraments, right, are the beginnings of the divinization of the cosmos.
Oh, Lord. Those are big words.
Yeah. You might say they're the first fruits of the new creation. The sacraments are. Specifically the Eucharist. Maybe not. Gotta be careful with my words. Let's just stick to the Eucharist. The Eucharist is the first fruits of, right, the divinization of the cosmos. Because it's being redeemed. When creation is redeemed, right, it's united to God. Right? Because sin severed heaven from earth. Redemption brings heaven and earth back together. Right? In a unity that is very profound. It's the unity of love. It's the communion of the Trinity applied outside of itself. Right? And so what that means is that matter matters. So, I wanted to kind of get into Scripture and start going through verses and talking like, this is why the Catholic position is correct. Do you want to do that? Do you have anything to... So what would you say to a Protestant now? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think I'm having a hard time driving home the importance of the matter thing because like you said, the presupposition going into this, especially when I was Protestant, is that it's like we have like this total depravity of man. Like there's matter is bad, and you need to like shed that. You got to burn off the chaff, the flesh. Yeah, it's all sinful.
So can I address that?
Yeah, that would be great because
I
thought I had an answer for that. Clearly I don't.
Well, so I gave you the second reason, which is the hermeneutic of the Word becoming flesh. But what was the first reason? First reason was Genesis, right? And that will tie into Romans 7, which you brought up. You may not have known that was Romans 7. I don't know. Maybe you did. Hey, you know what? I should give you more credit. I'm sorry. Right? But Romans 7 and 1 Corinthians, I think chapter 15, Paul talks about, right, the fleshly man and the spiritual man. It's like, well, come on, like the fleshly man means sin.
Seems straightforward to me.
Seems straightforward to me as well, right? But it's not. It's much more interesting. It's much more Jewish, right? So Jewish Genesis, right? You see this a lot in non-Jewish cultures and traditions. You see this a lot in the East, actually, in Asian religious tradition, which is that matter is the cause of suffering, right? And so the way we escape suffering is when our soul is released into eternal bliss, right? And so you have different and various forms of dualism, right? Some are more intricate than others, some are not so dualistic than others, but there is always found a form of matter being somewhat of a curse. The original spirit, the aboriginal spiritual man, right, is...
Wish you had Jordan Peterson. Our existence is hell.
Yeah, he's kind of tapping partly into that, but he's more sophisticated than... And so matter was seen as the source of suffering and therefore the source of evil, while spirit was that which needed to be liberated from the curse of matter, right? But what we see in Genesis, especially if you read it in its original ancient Near Eastern context, is what? God created the sun, the moon, the land, the sea, the animals, the birds, the fish.
And he saw that it was good.
And he created man as a living being. And he breathed, right, the breath of life. Breath is spirit, right? Now, this is what Paul is actually saying, because Paul's a Jew. Paul is not some form of Platonist, Neoplatonist, or anything like that, right? Paul is a Jew. There weren't Neoplatonists at the time, but what I'm saying is that he wasn't some kind of subsequent Platonist, because Plato and Platonism is not always the same thing. That's for the audience. Anyway, Paul is a Jew, and so he has Genesis in the back of his mind. And what happens is that man was formed out of the dust of the earth, right? And then the breath of life was breathed into his nostrils, and he became a nephesh in Hebrew. A nephesh means a living organism or being, right? There is no dualism there. The breath of life animates that which was taken from the dust of the earth. Now this could get real interesting if we look at the Essenes, because they believed that, well, dust wouldn't hold together with just breath, right? There must have been some moisture, right? And so there's this idea that God formed man like when you form a clay pot.
Yeah, like a potter.
Yeah, and so God breathes, but he spits as well, right? And so there you see this in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But what does Jesus do with the blind man?
He spits on the mud.
He makes mud and he puts it on his eyes so the blind man can see, right? But the cool thing is that baptism, as that which gives new birth, new creation, right, was called the sacrament of enlightenment, right? And the Essenes,
to illuminate.
To see again, right?
Yeah.
The Essenes called those who were members of their covenant the children of light, which is really, so that's a tangent, but it's just really interesting stuff, right? So the point being, though, is that you don't have dualism in Genesis. You have this nephesh, which is really an animal like all the other ones. But the breath of life is placed in him. And what demarcates him from the animals isn't the breath of life, because the animals have it too. So this idea that somehow man has a soul and animals don't, that's not biblical. It's kind of thrown around. It's not really accurate. What makes man different from the animals is that he's made in the image and likeness of God, which is his capacity for interpersonal communion, which implies freedom to give oneself and knowledge to know the gift and to knowingly give oneself, right? And so what you have here is you have an animal who is a person, but it's not a soul in a body or a body trapped in some kind of soul or vice versa. There's no, one over the other, and it's not two separate things that make up man. He is an animal that is a person. And because he's a person, he's in the image of God.
And that's really interesting there, because what you pointed to is the fact that to be human, like, necessitates that interpersonal relationship. So it's really, it's love, right? That free gift of oneself.
Yeah.
And the, I don't want to say obligation, but the reciprocation. Not an obligation, but like a freedom of reciprocation as well.
Back and forth.
It takes two to tango. Some might say.
Yeah, I love it.
And that being what makes us human is made in the image and likeness of God, which is love altogether.
God is a communion of persons.
God is love.
Yeah, quite
That's
literally.
Fascinating.
And so, but what do we see there? That man isn't somehow some kind of person afflicted by matter who needs to escape it, right?
Yeah.
Rather, matter is good, and then what happens? So what these creation myths are trying to explain is, where does evil and suffering come from? A lot of them are saying matter. But Genesis says, no, matter is good. Sin.
Sin is bad.
Right. And so sin is when the flesh eclipses the person, right? When the object eclipses the subject.
Well, so I feel like what you're not addressing, though, is why. So it sounds like you're making an argument that the spiritual and the physical can't be separated.
Yeah, they can't.
But God's not physical.
Yeah, so they can't be separated in the sense where man isn't like a spiritual substance and a material substance, as if it was two different substances. He's one substance that is both spiritual and material. So God is only spiritual.
Okay.
God is only spiritual.
Books are only physical.
And books are only material, for example, right? But man isn't two things. He's one. So when we speak of man, we speak of something that is spiritual and material. And so the moment you divorce them,
That
you're
kinda
not
makes sense.
speaking
Yeah,
of man.
it's not really a man anymore.
It's not a man
It's
anymore.
a ghost,
It's an angel
or a zombie.
Yeah, and you see this in Genesis, for
Yeah.
example, the three angels seeing Abraham, they inhabited bodies or they vested themselves with bodies, but those weren't the angels in a certain sense, right? And so, anyway, the point being though is that like yes, there are things that are purely like meaning, like an angel is like
Or like an idea.
an idea,
Yeah.
or God, right? He is not material, because that which is material, and this is what Paul is getting at, that which is material is made up of parts, and that which is made up of parts can be taken apart, right? And decay comes with matter,
Yeah.
right? Now, but so this is why man is faced with the choice between immortality and death in the Genesis story, and because of his nature, it necessitates this decision: will he follow the kind of the decay of matter, or the spirit which elevates? Well, we'll get so.
That sounds kind of dualistic, though, right? Where it's like you choose one way or another. So what happens when somebody dies before the Earth gets?
Yeah, no, that's a big question. So, well,
I don't want to get too far.
yeah,
but I
Ratzinger
feel like,
addresses that. But man, you're talking about Aquinas' definition of the soul.
yeah. Well, so my problem is this, right? You're making a good case as to why we can't separate these two ideas, right? And it makes a lot
We
of sense.
can distinguish
why
them,
yeah,
but we can't separate them in man.
like literally separate them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not addressing, I don't feel like, why that means the Protestant framework is wrong.
Well, because if man leaves behind his body, he's no longer a man. So it's not the salvation of creation; it's the salvation of something completely other.
Ghosts.
Yeah, and that's not what we are. Christ came to save us.
Yeah, but the body's not saved right away, is it?
Yeah. So the body. So salvation is a process, right?
Yeah.
So there's initial salvation. So there's a sense in which Christianity is what we call inaugurated eschatology, right? And so N.T. Wright talks about this quite a bit, and it turns out the Essenes also had what we call an inaugurated eschatology. What inaugurated eschatology is that it's the inauguration of something, right? It's the beginning, but not the fulfillment. And eschatology is the fulfillment of all things. So it's an inauguration of the fulfillment.
A beginning of the fulfillment of all. Yeah, so that makes sense.
And so what that means is that death has been conquered, right? Christ has dealt a deathly blow to death.
Amen.
But it's still around us, right?
Yes, it is.
So you have that initial conquest, we know with certainty, with faith, right? And in our union with Christ through that faith, we participate in that future glory here and now. But it's not fulfilled. It's the inauguration of that fulfillment. And that's why the sacraments are there, right? The point being, though, is that fulfillment is the new creation after the final judgment. And then,
yeah, but that hasn't happened yet, right?
That's right.
We're in between.
That's
so there's a point at which we're separating the physical and the spiritual, the material and the spiritual.
I don't see that. Where?
When spirits leave bodies.
Spirits don't leave bodies. What?
When somebody dies, what happens?
Yeah, so that's the big question, right? So there's several theories, right? People who are faithful to the biblical data, at least try to be, right, will say, well, a human being is not a spirit, right? Mm-hmm. So when he dies, he ceases to exist, annihilation. I don't believe that. I'm just saying this. Mm-hmm. But you see how someone would come to that conclusion based off of what we said.
Yeah, it's completely fair.
You see what I'm saying? So there's a tension here, right? And after annihilation, resurrection is new creation, literally, quite literally, right? But there's no continuity. That's not the same person in a certain sense. But we can get back into that.
I'm not sure what you just said. All right, so
go ahead.
All right. Is that a matter of time, like in that issue? Is that what you're saying? So you die, and then new creation,
for it to be the
you're
same
like incorporated
person
into it,
right? So if I create a person, right, but then they go completely out of existence, and then they come back into existence, there's no continuity of identity.
If they go out of existence and then come immediately back into existence,
yeah, that would be a new creation of a new creature.
Because he was out of existence at some point.
Yeah, it's a new thing.
Yeah.
There's no continuity to ground that identity.
Okay. I buy that.
Okay.
That seems weird, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, so, because like, would it be
Unless you have a better analogy for that, because, I don't know,
well,
that just seems really heady to me.
Yeah, well, would it be Our
So you're
bodies
saying
change.
if I were to burn my house down and then build a new one right there,
Yeah.
even if it was I built the same house, it's like really a different house.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that
So-
actually makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Because like the stuff of our body changes when you're 10 years old versus when you're 70 years old.
yeah,
Your body's gone through a process where the molecules that are part of your body are not the same ones, like at all.
that's why you are what you eat.
But there's a continuity, yes, which ties into the Eucharist.
And ties into our first sponsor, HelloFresh. We're gonna...
Fresh?
I'm just kidding. You never heard of HelloFresh?
No,
Rich people stuff.
gotcha. So, what maintains that continuity is the identity of the person, right? And that identity is the substance, what stands below the material, right? So, for example, a river, right? It is the river. Do you step in the same river? Do you step?
I see the point you're making. Yeah.
It's
different water, but it's the same river.
Yeah. So this is something like one of the pre-Socratics brought up. Literally, he's the one that came up with this. Like, you don't step twice in the same river. The point being is that yes, you do, because it's not about the changing parts of the river. It's the substance.
Of the river, yeah.
It's the substance. It's what stands underneath. Substare in Latin. Understand. To stand below.
Oh.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah. And so the problem is if substance ceases to stand below, identity is lost and continuity is lost. And what you have is, in that discontinuity, right, you have different substances. Make sense? Because if something no longer stands below, it's no longer a substance.
Yeah.
So you have a different substance.
Yeah.
And so you don't have the same person that's brought back to life. It's a new thing, a new substance.
Yeah.
Anyway, that
was like a tangent of a tangent.
Yeah.
All right, so
let's put it this way, right? Because in Genesis, the Jews are responding to other creation myths and many other things.
well, you want to finish the last tangent first? So what you said was basically we were talking about the separation of the material and the spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about basically the ways that could take place, right? So either Sam dies and then he ceases to exist.
So I wrote a paper on this, and so this is going to be tough, but here we go.
Okay. Where's the paper?
On my laptop.
Oh, so it's not material. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so.
Am I stressing you out?
No, it's just that you're asking questions that get really into the weeds. But hey, this is what we're here for.
Yeah.
So let me put it to you this way, Sam, right?
Well, if we could just maybe like chunk it to where
I promise I'll try. I'm going to summarize this.
No, I'm not trying to limit you. I just I don't want to keep going down rabbit holes. You know how you like cut the head off the hydra and like 7 more grow?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we could like answer.
I'll answer this one and move right back to Genesis.
Okay.
And then we'll go straight back to the Eucharist. So here's the thing, right? When you think of matter, you think of molecules and atoms, and a good example might be dirt, right? That's stuff. It's matter, right?
Is, yes.
But what is dirt? It's dirt. So it has a substance. It's a kind of thing.
Yeah.
It has a form, right? So what would be matter without a form?
Matter without a form.
Would it be an atom?
Be like,
Wait, what's an atom? An atom is something. It's a form.
Atom. Yeah.
So what would be matter without a form?
Is there an answer for that? Let me think.
Yeah.
Matter without a form would be potential matter. Is that dark matter?
Did you call it? Dude, that's great.
Nah, is that the answer?
Potential. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's why. But that's why I hesitated because it's not really matter if it doesn't.
Matter
exist.
can't exist without form. Because if it did, it would be something, which implies a form. So matter is merely the potential for form to be present.
Dude, I literally straight from the hip, bud.
Dude, I was super impressed. Super impressed. Now here's the key, right? Form. So the human soul, is to the body what form is to matter.
Oh my gosh, that actually makes a lot of sense.
I'm glad you understood that.
So.
Oh god, that sounded so mean.
No. Okay. Well, the way you weren't like super specific in the way you worded it. Like I'm honestly surprised I understood that.
Okay.
And as I try to repeat it back, I'm gonna butcher it. So maybe I don't understand anything.
Go ahead.
So what you're saying is basically, form would be the way something participates. So form would be the essence of basically what something is. Yeah, and so it would be like the dirt participates in dirtness. Yeah, exactly. So the way that a human basically participates in humanity is its spirit. Am I close?
Yeah, you are. So yeah, you're right. So the what makes a human being, right, is in a sense it's humanness, unless there's matter, right, can't be divided, right?
Yeah, but it's the human. But it's the spirit is the humanness of matter
Yeah.
of a
Okay.
body.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
want to clean that up for me?
No. Yeah. No. You're right. You're right.
That's okay. That's okay.
So the way you phrased it made me think about the divine ideas. But okay, because
All my
essences.
ideas are divine. I think therefore
So
it is.
let's see if I can do this. And I'm gonna have to get good at explaining these kind of things if we're gonna be on YouTube. But okay, so you're right. So to be human is a type of thing, right? But why? So here, I'll put you this way, right? Human, right? What's similar between me and you is our humanity,
Yes.
right? What's different between me and you is that we're human here and there, now and then, versus here and there. No, okay, how about that?
I see what you mean.
So
I'm human on this side of the table.
you're human
on
there,
that side
I'm
of the
human here.
Yeah.
You're human now, and I'm human then. Let's just say, for example, right? So time and space, right? So matter, right? What?
We just took like 45 seconds to say time and space. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I try to hurry up. But yeah, so if there wasn't matter, if there wasn't space-time, right, then there wouldn't be several human beings. There would just be one humanity, one essence of humanity. So matter is what makes the human essence able to be instantiated in different individuals.
Does that apply to all matter, or is it just
You mean
humanity?
all essences, you mean?
Yes.
Yes. So Katniss, if it weren't for matter...
Volunteered as tribute.
I knew. Why did I know you were going to say that?
I'm just kidding.
All right, so let's get
Kat.
back to it. So the
Okay.
point being, though, is that form and matter is the soul is to the body what form is to matter. And so they're not two substances, just like dirt is something, right? But it's not like you have dirtness and then something else. That something else wouldn't exist unless you had the form there. So you have one substance, which is dirt. You have one substance, which is human being, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
You're one substance. You're not matter plus form in the sense of two different substances.
And the substance is the spirit, basically.
That's right. So now, let's see if we can move through this. Let's look at a cat. What happens when the matter of the cat decays? The form ceases to exist.
Yeah, it's not a cat anymore.
Right. So it's not cat anymore.
Yeah,
it's not
it's
form cat
It's
anymore.
a rose bush.
Yeah. So yeah, rose bush, exactly. So the point being is that because the form of the cat, right, arranges the matter to be in cat arrangements, the moment that arrangement ceases, the cat form is gone as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's something different about us,
Yes.
right?
Agreed.
Which is that we're persons,
Yes.
which means that we have reason, intellects,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the intellect, right? So when the intellect is a capacity that grasps universal ideas, right? So, for example, a cat, when he sees a tree, he's like, obstacle, I must go around.
Mm-hmm.
Or I must go up. That looks like a lot of fun, right? But he doesn't think, oh, there's another tree. There's another tree, the idea tree. Oh, yeah. These are all examples of the idea tree. You know, no.
I just imagine a cat in like the like a meditating pose.
Yeah, yeah.
With a third eye.
Yeah. Never mind. I almost made a reference that I probably shouldn't on here. Okay, so the point being, though, is that cats can't do that. But us human beings, we can abstract essences from their material instantiations, right? And so when we think of these ideas, these universal ideas, right, those ideas are abstracted from matter, which means they're not material. And so we have a faculty that can basically ponder non-material things. So there's a part of us that is not material.
Is that your definition of reason?
No, I mean,
Sorry.
another tangent. Let's put that aside.
All right. Okay.
So in other words, we have spiritual faculties that are not composed of material parts. So the cat, right? His form is the arrangement of his matter. right? The structure of the matter. That's the cat form. It's a living matter, material being. The matter falls apart, the form is gone. But because we're not just an arrangement of material parts, but we're also able to think about universal ideas which don't have parts, right? And the mode of the receiver is similar to the mode of the object received. I'm butchering that phrase. A Thomist might be listening right now thinking I'm an idiot. The point being is that for something to receive spiritual things, itself must be spiritual.
Okay, yeah, that
right?
makes sense.
Okay, and so
in order to communicate something in English, the other person also needs to be able to speak English.
But we're materially instantiated spiritual things. Cats aren't spiritual things.
Yep.
Right? They have souls in a different sense. The soul is the form of the cat. Our souls are the form of our body, but they're spiritual forms. So this is the genius of Aquinas, where he maintains the unity. There's no dualism. And yet he makes a distinction where when the body does decay, because we are intelligent and are spiritual beings, then we subsist. We remain. We don't fall into non-existence when our bodies fall apart. But it's an unnatural situation because to be human is to have a body, and we don't have a body. So it's an unnatural violence on human nature, right? And so what that means is that you have this kind of unnatural intermediate state where the soul is meant to be a body, but it's deprived of that. It's kind of a violence, right? Mm-hmm. And so death really is violent for human beings in a way that is not the same for animals, because we persist in a way that's really tearing apart of a unity. That's why it's so drastic, death, right? Mm. And so, but for the Christian, right, St. Paul says to be away from the body is to be with the Lord. Because of our union with Christ in the sacraments of the Eucharist, as well as also just because of our participation in the body of the church, right? There is a union with Christ, right, that persists after material death. And so, in a sense, the body of the Lord, right, is kind of in that unity of love, we're united to the Lord until we receive our bodies back, right? So really, how to put this? So my mind is going in a lot of different areas.
I think I know what you're saying. Well,
it's also hard to grasp, like,
bro. That's rough.
Yeah.
All right. So what you're saying is,
go ahead.
What happened was. So basically, something has a form and it has matter, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is that you hesitated?
I don't want to be.
Is it more complicated?
I don't want to be an a-hole.
Am I using?
Keep going.
Am I using the right verbiage?
No.
I want to get it. I want to get it right.
We don't have matter and have form. We are matter-form composites. But see, I'm just being an a-hole. Keep going.
Wait, is that everything, or that's just humans?
And that's everything that has matter. That is a matter-form composite.
Everything's a matter-form composite. Isn't that the point?
Not angels.
Okay, that's true. Damn, you're being super like.
I'll shut up. Keep going.
No. I mean, you're correct, but it's like.
Yeah, I'm being careful with my words.
But you're also like completely. What's the word? Where you're like you're taking into consideration all of the like little things. Every like there's only two genders, and you're like, well, technically there's like 0.2% of the population that. You know.
Yeah. Well, the problem is because like I hope there's no Thomist listening. Yeah.
You're an academic. Yeah. All right. I respect that. Okay, so. Generally speaking, something is it is matter with a participation in some form. It is a matter with a participation in some form. It's a form matter composite.
Yes, beautiful.
Okay, not to steal your words because I just stole your words.
That's totally fine.
So when a human is basically denied the matter because that dies or decays. Mm-hmm. It sounds like he or she is then joined to the form of God in some way.
I see. Yeah. So he doesn't become Jesus Christ.
Yeah. No, and I'm trying to make that clear. But you're joined, right? So the idea is you're united because there's still an element of physical. There's still a matter there. There has to be.
Yeah. So that part I'm not sure. So
this might be beyond the realm of even.
Well, so. what is the nature of our existence post-mortem, right? So Aquinas would say it's a unnatural subsistence of the spiritual soul.
A unnatural subsistence of the spiritual soul,
So
because it is no longer joined
that's
to something material.
that's right. That's right. Now, but
Wow,
when you
I
take
sound smart.
but when, but when you take into account Christ, what is the union of love between the person who died and the risen Christ? I wouldn't say that somehow Christ's body is like we inhabit it, like he's got several heads or something, right? Or a bunch of souls in Christ's body. That's not what I'm saying. That would be completely incorrect.
That would make sense how
But because
there's
of
so much of him to eat every Sunday.
but because of the
Soylent's made of people.
so that sounds like a crazy several-headed God thing. We're not saying that, okay? The nature of the union between the Christian and Christ, right, is one which permits that subsistence in a way. Because what does Christ say? I am the resurrection and the life. And so when we're united to life itself, right, by default, obviously we have life.
Yeah.
Right. So when we die, because we're united to Christ, who is life, we don't die.
How does this tie like into relationship? Right. So I have that. There's a quote in my head. The warrior poet Macklemore once said. He said, "Person has two deaths.
Oh,
when you die, and then the last time somebody says your name."
yeah.
So in my mind, it's like
that brings up so much.
Yeah, the way you're tied. I said the warrior poet. Like anyway, so it seems like the way you're tied to the body of Christ is through relationship with other people, which is really relationship with Christ.
Oh my goodness.
Because it is a participation in relationship, which is God.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't know how that ties to the physical, and it's making my head hurt.
Oh, it doesn't. So we don't
You're like,
have.
It doesn't.
We don't have our bodies. It's unnatural state.
Yeah. Okay, so
yeah. So it's really not the way man is supposed to be. Hence the resurrection. This is the very reason why Aquinas argues for the fittingness of the resurrection, because of the fact that the soul apart from the body is in an unnatural state, right? And the resurrection is the fulfillment of the very purpose of what it means to be human.
Oh, I got a new question then.
Okay, go ahead. Can I just add for the audience?
Yeah.
We started with the idea of the Eucharist, but honestly, let's just keep going. Like in this rabbit hole. I hope you guys are enjoying this, but sometimes the audience probably doesn't enjoy listening as much as we do making them, and sometimes vice versa. We don't like making them sometimes because we're not feeling like it, and they really like it. I've heard that from a couple listeners. Anyway, another tangent. Go ahead.
I love a good tangent. It's my favorite flavor.
Tangent.
I'm just kidding. Shoot, what was I gonna say, dude? Oh, so what about people that go to hell? Or so like, what about? So let's say the earth is redeemed, right? There's a group of people that are going to get cast into a lake of fire, right? So I know there's the whole...
I just hate when you ask me the hell question.
It's hard, dude.
Because I actually have so many damn questions, excuse my language, questions that are unanswered myself. But go ahead.
Well, so is the idea, are they going to get bodies as well?
Oh, yes.
Everybody
Okay, I can
gets
answer that.
resurrected and then...
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, this isn't like the church came down saying this is what you have to believe, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, this is what tradition teaches, especially in St. Thomas, which is that the damned...
Like smart guy.
Yeah. The damned as well will receive their bodies back, yes. That's right. That's pretty much it.
Well, that was my question. That settles that.
That's pretty much it. That's what St. Thomas says, yes. That's what he teaches. He's to our left right now.
All right. So what were you going to say? So
the books, anyway. Yes.
So we talked about you're being incorporated into the body of Christ due to relationship, right? It's basically
you said something like just a few seconds ago that was just beautiful summary of what Ratzinger was trying to argue.
Oh, I'm basically...
It wasn't
I'm
as
incorporated
well
into
said as him,
Ratzinger.
but you got the gist of it.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So I feel like what happened here is Ratzinger wrote this down, I read it and tried to understand it, tried to explain it to you, and then you regurgitated it, and I checked Ratzinger, and it matches, so we're good. We learned.
The Trinity.
All right, so does that make sense about life after death, but how man is material and spiritual without being two substances but one?
Yes.
That was a lot there.
Yeah,
it
was. All right, so what you're conceding, though, is that there is a point in our existence after we die, before the earth is re-inherited and redeemed,
Yes.
where we're in an unnatural state. We're
Yes.
not both material and physical and
That's
spiritual.
right. That's right.
How does that not like invalidate your argument for the Eucharist?
Yeah, because it's unnatural.
So,
Death is that which Christ comes to conquer, not enshrine.
death is what Christ came to conquer and not enshrine. What would it mean to enshrine death? What does that mean?
To say that because we're somehow at one point unnaturally not physical, right? That's what Christ came to conquer.
No. So I would make my understanding, Protestant side,
Yep.
prior to
Yep.
any of this conversion mumbo jumbo,
Yeah, whatever happened there.
would be that either the earth does get re-inherited, we're all going to get new bodies, or redeemed bodies.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean the Eucharist is necessary.
Yeah, so we're coming back to the Eucharist.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to.
Yeah, no, beautiful, wonderful.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so the Eucharist, right? So at this point, we're not even making any kind of exegetical or biblical argument for it. We're just talking purely like theoretical, philosophically, and theologically, right? Which is totally fine. That's what we're here for. So the reason why the Eucharist is important, right? And so first of all, I know, right? Sam pointed to the book that is right next to me called Eschatology, Death and Eternal Life by Joseph Ratzinger. Book changed my life. Anyway, getting back on topic. So, yeah, so the thing is, the Catholic understanding of the Eucharist, Sam, is that Christ, right, is substantially present in the bread and wine, although the physical attributes of the bread and wine are those of bread and wine.
So I get okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I don't
Yeah.
mean to cut you off, but
Yeah.
So let's see if I can finish this strand, and it might make some more sense. And what happens is that because Christ is life itself, right? When we partake of the Eucharist, right, we are partaking of life itself. And so the Eucharist is the food of immortality. It is the instrumental cause by which, right, our bodies are eventually going to be glorified, right? So it's the food of immortality. So think of it this way. Our bodies decay, right? But our glorified bodies, our redeemed bodies, will not decay. They will be spiritualized without ceasing to be material, but they'll be spiritualized, a matter that doesn't decay anymore, right? So in the Eucharist, what Christ does is through matter, he provides a spiritualization of the body, just as the Word becomes flesh so that flesh might be redeemed. And so the Eucharist is the flesh of the Lord that we take in, and we are what we eat, right? And we are thereby redeemed, and we receive that food of immortality. We intake Christ, who is life itself. And so the resurrection, right, and the Eucharist are intimately tied. Now, the food of the Eucharist, right, as we saw, it isn't a physical presence of Christ. The accidents are that of bread and wine. But it's not either a mere symbol to remind us of Christ. It's substantially Christ. He's really present. So you have a sacramental presence, right? So you have a spiritual presence, but not in the sense of as if Christ isn't there. It's just a nice spiritual idea. No, spiritual meaning the strongest form of presence, because the Spirit is more real, you might say, than matter. Because the Spirit is that which cannot decay, but matter can. So a spirit is more real, right? And so, in other words, when we partake of that spiritual Christ, not in the Catholics are going to freak out here, right? But using these terms properly, right? We partake of Christ spiritually, which is a very real thing. Christ is truly, really present. And so that spiritual presence, right, under the accidents of the species, right? That spiritual presence itself spiritualizes us, right? Make sense?
Yes.
And so the resurrection of the body is the consummation of that holy diet, you might say.
I like the parallels to consummation, especially in the in the context of covenant. Like that makes sense. But I'm still missing like the necessity piece, I think. I got another question though, something that just popped up.
The necessity for what?
The necessity for the consummation. The
Consummation. Oh, eating the Eucharist.
yeah, like over and over again. Like the
Oh, yeah. So that's really because of marriage, right? Life comes about through the renewal of the marital act, right?
okay.
Yeah. What, you don't like that?
No, I love that.
Oh.
Actually really, really like that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
and we can talk about that more.
It's
I
us
guess
coming
I was
together
trying
with
to,
life itself.
Yeah,
It's-
it was something before that.
Yeah.
But I just felt like it wasn't. I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to drive home the necessity for
the Eucharist,
the necessity for.
the retaking of the Eucharist.
No, I get all that as well. Sorry, I'm dragging this out.
You're totally fine. We're
Would
here
you
to
say
learn.
that existing as? Would you say that existing in the form of a person as the material of bread and wine is an unnatural state?
Okay, so you said, so I think what you're trying to say is that
Probably. You're probably.
would you say that Christ being present in the Eucharist under the form of bread and wine is not natural because Christ had a body and not bread and wine?
Yes.
Yeah. So the question is, it's not about it being natural, because what it is to be human, right, is to have a human body. Now, Christ, first and foremost, is not human. He's God.
Mm.
Now, God becomes man, not by ceasing to become God, but by taking on a second nature, right? So there's two natures in Christ. And so Christ is fully divine, and all that means, and all that is implied therein, and fully human. And so that's why he was resurrected and ascended and sat at the right hand of the Father. So he's fully those, right? In the Eucharist, right, God, in his human and divine nature, makes himself available to us in a way that becomes the source of our life. And so his human nature isn't somehow not there. It's substantially and spiritually present, although in the guise of the signs of bread and wine, of the accidents. And so it's not unnatural, because for us, we actually don't have our body. That's unnatural for human beings, right? But Christ in the Eucharist does have his body, although it's not there physically, but sacramentally. But he still has it,
So there,
right? So
Dang,
it's also a
that's a good-
miracle, though.
dude. There's no way anybody's ever asked you that question ever before. Ever.
I
How
don't
did you have an
think
answer
so.
to that?
I just think it through. I don't know. I'm applying principles
Yeah.
that I've learned.
Would you say that Christ is divine and divine? See, I too just think of things.
What do you think of this setup, though, huh?
It's fantastic.
And you
This
can
is really
hear.
good. Yeah, so this is our first episode with me having headphones. I feel like
Isn't it?
yeah, I feel like a big boy now.
Yeah, it's different, huh? You can
Yeah,
hear everything.
like Tim Pool back here.
See, and now I don't have to tell you to get closer to the mic or go further from it. You can hear yourself, and so I don't have to say anything, except for when you bump into it like an idiot. I'm kidding.
Good times.
So we actually did kind of circle back to the Eucharist. That's awesome.
Well, no, that's good. And sorry, yeah, we started with the presuppositions way too deep, I think.
Yeah.
And that was good, I think, for me. I don't know if anybody else was going to be interested in that.
Oh no, I think they will be.
But the parallels of, right, so the parallels of the Eucharist being a remembrance of the covenant, I think is just gorgeous. Like we were touching on a minute ago.
Like the marital reunion is not going to be the right word, but
I say renewal of the vows.
there you go.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
so-
Yeah, renewal. Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if I can explain this. So,
Yeah.
and that way you can fix me. This is going to practice my verbology, my vernacular, and my lexicon. Right-click thesaurus. Yeah, so basically, right, if we compare... holy cow, what was I going to say?
Marriage and the Eucharist.
Yeah, but we're not comparing... The Eucharist is like the consummation of the marriage. It'd be the... What would be the...
The exchange of vows.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, baptism.
Is it?
So that's I see what I think I know what your head's doing right now.
My head hurts. I'm just kidding. It's COVID.
Because baptism, there's also a consummation with the sign of the water, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is it?
So here's a good way to put it, right? What the Eucharist is a consummation of the vow of your faith. What do you say before you receive the host? Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Which means so be it, or I trust, I stand upon this firm ground. I understand. Ratzinger talks about this in Intro to Christianity. Faith is to stand and understand. It's to stand firm upon meaning itself. It's to believe that there is love and meaning in the world, and it is beyond any empirical evidence that we can conjure up through natural sciences. It's not unreasonable, but it's the ground for any reasonable discussion. So faith really is the amen to the invisible. Yes, I believe. Right? The creed begins with I believe and ends with amen. It's like it begins with I believe and ends with I believe because it stands and you stand upon it. It's this claim that the invisible is what grounds the visible. Okay, sorry, tangent. The point being is that when you receive the Eucharist, right, that faith that you have and that you speak in your day-to-day life, right, it gives life. And that life is consummated in the Eucharist.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Well, so if you think about so the implication there is that, you have the covenant, but you have marriage as a covenant as well. And so the consummation would be like basically, the physical implications of marriage. But the way that you just describe it is it creates life. It gives life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just
like marriage.
The consummate. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. The spouses
You don't look surprised by that. So
oh, I'm sorry.
You must have heard that before. Yeah. I didn't just come up with that. Is that what you're telling me? I'm just kidding.
Oh, wait. I don't think so. I thought you said it to me literally yesterday. No. Oh, gives life. Oh, I see. No, I'm sorry. I have heard it before. I'm
sure you've heard it before. I was making a joke. Like clearly that people have been thinking about this stuff for 2,000 years. I didn't just come up with that.
Yeah. No. So the spouses say, "I do," or "I take thee," or or like the Anglicans, "I thee worship with my body." Right.
Oh, that's cool.
It's so beautiful, isn't it?
Can we do that too?
There's already a rite, but I mean, I don't know.
Like,
you could go to a ordinariate priest. Ordinariate priests are Anglican priests who became Catholic, and they still have their liturgy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
I'm not trying to go against the grain.
Yeah. So they exchange these vows of I am giving myself to you, totally and unreservedly, and until death do us part.
Yeah.
Right. And then. But later on that night, when they come together and become one flesh, right, what they're doing is they're speaking those vows with their bodies, right? And so what happens is that becoming of one flesh is a union of love that is so strong that a lot of times 9 months later you give it a name, right? Yep. Scott Hahn put it that way. I want to give him credit for that because I don't want to say I made up that pun or whatever it is. The point being, though, is that in the Eucharist, right, Christ on the cross said yes to the bride. I will be faithful to you, right? Totally, unreservedly. And there is no until death do us part, right? Because he's faithful as God forever, right? And what do we respond? We respond the same way. Through faith for faith, Romans 1:17. Remember Paul? Through faith, for faith, through Christ's faith, for our faith back to him, right? And so we respond yes as well. But it's when we receive the Eucharist, when we receive him sacramentally, that we say that with our bodies and that he says it with his body and that we become one flesh, right? And so as the spouse, as the church, the spouse of the bridegroom, and him, the bridegroom of the bride, our faith is consummated in the reception of Holy Communion. Right? And that brings about spiritual life in our souls. The Spirit truly dwells in us, right? So, Spirit being what? The life of God, right? So, but we didn't really cover the biblical basis for any of this. So, a Protestant probably, if a Protestant's listening, he's like, "Well, that's all nice and fancy and good, but what about Scripture?" So maybe we'll do that some other time, huh?
I
mean,
yeah. So now that I'm Catholic, I don't have to read my Bible anymore.
Yeah. Honestly, tell me something here, and I could be wrong about this, right? But since you've been hanging out with Catholics, not all, okay, with specific, like Phil, myself, and our young adult group, right? You've been reading the Bible more than you have any time before that, have you?
Let me think.
Okay, I'm probably wrong.
No, I don't think you are, but I'm trying to be fair.
Oh yeah, this is not meant as a jab.
Yeah.
Because clearly that is a Catholic stereotype.
I won't let you make jabs. No, yeah, you're correct.
So you've been actually reading your Bible more than ever.
Yeah.
Right? Or if not reading it, at least hearing me yell at you verses from across the room. Hey, Sam, I just figured this one thing out or found this cool thing out. Okay, Dom.
Well, Mike Schmitz is a big help too, and then
Yeah. Father Schmidt, yeah. Bible in the
you
year.
have to call him Father Schmitz now.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. He's cool with Mike. We hang out all the time. Yeah, man, that's a good point. Well, I mean, part of it too is like you hang around with people who are like-minded, and
Yeah.
it's just important to be equally yoked in
the gym, yeah.
Yoked. And whether people admit it or not, you become more like the people that you hang out with. And so it's important to make smart decisions when it comes to that stuff.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, man.
Yeah, so this was a great episode. We didn't really dive into scripture, but that's okay, and we'll do that sometime. Because honestly, when you do dive into scripture with this new framework that we now both share, the scripture comes alive in a way that is insanely beautiful.
It really does. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine recently, and well, he's a Calvinist, and so we were discussing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, long story short, we got to the point. He's like, "Yeah, like I don't really understand that. It's just like kind of a mystery, you know." And I was like, "I don't know. We use that excuse too. I don't want to say excuse, but we do, you know."
Mystery is that which is like ultimately understandable. It's more understandable than everything else.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Mystery is something that is so intelligible, right? And so filled with the divine reason of God Almighty that it is the most reasonable thing, mystery. And it's because of that we can never fully plumb its depths, right? We can never fully exhaust it. But it's because it's more reasonable than anything else. It's so reasonable. It's like a sea of intelligibility and beauty and goodness and truth. And it's like, it's not because, you don't say, there's reason, there's science, and then there's mystery as if that was the opposite or something that you can't understand. It's like, no, it's mystery because you can always understand it more and more and more. And so I hate that.
Oh, I didn't understand what you were talking about until just now.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So not as a cop-out, but it's something that you can understand it, but you will never kind of reach the depth of it.
Yeah, it's infinite. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I hate when people say that. It's like, oh, it's a mystery. I used to, not me, because I was fortunate, but I've heard people who got those answers. They had a question about the Eucharist or about this in the Bible or about that. It's like, oh, just have faith. It's a mystery. It's like, that's why we should be talking about it.
Yeah.
That's why we should be explaining it, because it's a mystery. A mystery is something that is, I'm looking for a better word than ultimately, but it's like, it's the most explainable thing in the sense where we can't stop explaining it. There's so much to talk about. So, and that's what we
really
should
good way
be
to look
doing.
at it.
Yeah. And not just
I'd have to bring
faith.
that up and see what he.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about the predestination piece. I think it was like.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It's like, how do you?
Tell him to. There's
Anyway.
this podcast you should listen to.
Great podcast. Great podcast.
Honestly, it's a joy making these with you because I feel like it verbalizing what I've been reading helps me understand what I'm thinking better, and it's good practice for when I'm going to teach, because that's the hope, right? I want to be able to teach.
And you verbalizing what you're reading means I don't have to read it myself. So.
Yeah. Well, that being said, we want to thank the audience for listening to this episode on the Eucharist and on the metaphysics of what it means to be a human being. That being said, like, subscribe, leave comments, support us on Patreon. www.patreon.com/The Logos Project. And without further ado, we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.